Well, we skipped a month, but that doesn't matter, or at least I think we did. I don't really know. But either way, it's another monthly discussion video right at the start of the month of March, and of course, Sam.
Hi, sorry, like I forgot what to do.
I almost forgot what to do too. I was thinking about how I usually start the videos of, do I usually do the screen capture first, or do I do the audio first, or yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while for me too since I recorded. I actually think the last time I recorded was with you, but I don't even remember the last time I don't even remember the last time we recorded. And I actually can't check because Skype doesn't let you see that. Actually, yeah, it probably was, because the last recording I have is January 18th. I mean, the last phone call I have is January 18th, and I think me and you did it, talk the same day as my other one. So that's probably the last, so it's been a little over a month since I recorded, so, not that people on YouTube have missed me. I don't sound bitter. But either way, well, I mean, first thing to get to is, for those who are listening, if, the handful of you, well, first, just to, clear something up, for those watching, I'm not saying this because I'm, bitter or hated, it's just, I'm making jokes, I'm making light of the fact that very few people watch my videos, because I don't really care how many people watch. I do it because it's fun, not because of the views. Simple as that. And I'm sure you could probably attest to that too. You did it because you enjoyed it, not because, when you had the time to do it. That you did it because you enjoyed it, not because you wanted to get, 500,000 views.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I would have liked more people to watch, but yeah, I did it because I liked doing it, and it gave me something to do, and I looked forward to doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, me and you are both, one of those statistics, more or less, of people who used to, but don't do it anymore. But that's okay. Because, that's, it was always a hobby for us. It was never a lifestyle.
Yes.
Yeah. But, speaking of a hobby, or something that is considered a hobby because I haven't made money yet, it's, I don't know if you saw on Twitter yesterday that I did relist the first issue of the magazine, but with the added, with the difference being that any money made this time, we will not be pocketing any of the money, and all of it will be going to charity. That is, if we sell anything this time, because I'm not buying an issue this time. But also, apparently, from what I've been told, both the original first issue and the new issue, which is $1 less than the original first issue, are listed for whatever reason, and that's kind of irritating, because we don't need 2 issues listed. Because, it's 2 of the same magazine issue, listed for $1 price, $1 difference. It's kind of, a little, confusing and a little annoying, and I don't know, it's just, either way, the magazine's relisted, and anything we sell from the magazine will be given to a mental health, a charity benefiting mental health awareness. Yeah. So for the 5 of you that are going to watch this video, if the magazine's still listed when you watch this video, check blurb.com, and search on the bleachers, or follow the link on any of my various Twitters or Facebook.
Like a Mick Foley cheap plug over there.
Say it again?
It's like a Mick Foley cheap plug.
Hey, gotta squeeze it in when you can. I mean, I only, I only, at this point, I only do a video once a month, so. And we'll get to the other magazine later, and, but we can get to the, gotta spread out the cheap plugs, But with that being said, a lot has changed since we last spoke, huh? Or enough has changed since we last spoke.
Yes.
And one of the things that have changed is, well, we were right. People did get inducted in the Hall of Fame. Well, got announced for the Hall of Fame. They technically haven't gotten inducted yet.
Yeah.
Were you surprised by the first announcement, and do you think that they will headline this class, or do you think that they will pick another headliner to headline this class?
Yes and yes. Well, Shawn Michaels is obviously already in. Mm. Triple H is gonna go in at some point by himself. And I think the Outlaws were I'm sorry, I can't speak. I think the Outlaws were guaranteed to go in at some point too. I think that this is their way around getting Chyna in without having to go by herself, which, you know what, I'm gonna take it.
Yeah.
Because she deserves it.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, but I think that they're gonna end up headlining, yeah.
Oh, are you surprised that Shawn Michaels is the second person to get inducted twice?
No, I think if anybody should be in it twice, it should be Shawn Michaels.
Well, do you think that maybe next year Bret Hart could be the third, or do you think they're going to spread out the second, like the two-time inductees? Because Bret Hart was rumored to go in with Jim Neidhart this year.
I feel like they would spread that out, but why wouldn't Jim Neidhart be able to go in by himself?
Fair, but then it would be the posthumous induction, and you would have to question if if Jim Neidhart's the... I mean, it's unfortunate that Jim Neidhart has to go in posthumously, but, you tie back to the amount of, it's... not to speak ill of the dead, but with the amount of drug use that I've heard him, it's unfortunate because of that, but, at least you could technically get him in and say it's not a posthumous induction because Bret's going to be there to accept the induction. But him being solo, it would be like he would be occupying a spot for somebody else. Not to say he can't go in twice, but then you start saying, is he somebody that should be a two-time inductee? Unless you induct him as the Hart Foundation tag team in the Hart Foundation stable.
I would imagine that they would do the stable because you can get... I can't even remember who's in the Hall of Fame anymore. I thought the Honky Tonk Man was already in the Hall of Fame.
Well, from what I've heard, Honky was invited, or would it be asked? He was asked about an induction in 2010 or 2011, and he said no. So it's possible that some relationships have been healed, or, ill tension, or what have you, or maybe Honky was sort of like one of those guys that said, oh, until this guy goes in, I'm not going in, or, one of those things. I know Kevin Nash used to say, until Rick Rude goes into the Hall of Fame, it wouldn't be a credible Hall of Fame. I mean, I agree with that. I don't know how you feel about, I think some people are missing, and until they went in, it wouldn't be a legitimate Hall of Fame.
Oh, there's definitely people that should have went in before certain other people.
Sorry, Coco Beware. But it's like everybody says. It's not about your career. It's about how your relationship is with Vince.
Well, yeah, Owen Hart would have been in the Hall of Fame 20 years ago had his wife not had an issue with it.
True. That's true. And the scary part is, saying 20 years ago, that's almost. Oh,
wow. Well, I mean, okay. Yeah, he probably would have been inducted.
Well, no, I mean,
Posthumous, like right away.
Yeah, if you no, but what I was going to, is that it's almost approaching when they actually restarted the Hall of Fame in 2004. That, it's scary how 20 years ago is almost 2004.
Actually, no, it's been 20 years since Owen died, right?
Yeah, this year's 20 years. Mm-hmm.
But as you were saying, if they induct the Hart Foundation, you could technically get away with whatever version you want to induct, and Owen could go in that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Brett still gets in as a 2-time inductee.
And Brett still gets in 2-time, yeah. And then Jim Neidhart gets in rightfully so.
Yeah, and Davey Boy and Brian Pillman and...
Yeah. All of whom should be, you can argue, should be in by themselves, but at that, like I said, with China, at that point, they're in. Yeah, their individual career is enough on its own, but...
Yeah, but I mean...
It's, semantics at that point.
Yeah, and, talking about, who solo career and, tag team or what could have been, or that's a video all in itself because you're talking about the potential that Brian Pillman had he not passed away to be a top star, especially with his relationship with Austin, that he would have feuded with Steve Austin in WWE once Steve became champion, which Owen passed in October 97, Austin became champion in March 98. Had he not died, you gotta believe that WWE would have been different, well, a lot different in 1998 than it was. Having Brian Pillman on the top of the card with Austin, Rock, Mankind, Undertaker, Kane, DX, it would have been a lot different, and very possibly that it would have not, you wouldn't have had to have had guys like Rock and Triple H in the main event maybe before they're ready to be in the main event.
Yeah.
Because Pillman would have been able to occupy the spot that Shawn Michaels left behind. And done a damn good job of it too, because he fit the Attitude Era. But the same could be said for Owen or Davey Boy too, because at certain points both of them were in the peak of their careers, and you wonder what could have been. To something a little bit more positive and a little less grim and depressing. I not surprised that, I agree with you. I thought the Honky Tonk Man was in, but that just shows how often I think about the Honky Tonk Man.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Which may have come out wrong. Not to say that I think about the Honky Tonk Man, but more accurately, it shows how often we think about the Hall of Fame. But who, as people said, they are usually, the headliner is usually last, but, I think I agree with you that DX is probably going to be the headliners because Shawn Michaels and Triple H are more than capable of being the headliners. And Ed and X-Pac and the Outlaws and, just the stable as a whole, they are more than capable of being the headliners themselves. I probably wouldn't be surprised if the Warrior Award was probably last. or the Warrior induction was probably last, and maybe the posthumous induction was next. What do you think?
It all depends on who gets them. Because as you were saying that, I'm like wondering if they're gonna give it to Roman.
I could see that.
I could see that happening, and I feel like that would be last.
Yeah, I could see that.
Who do they give it to?
But if I had to guess who could be next, who could be the next induction, which I doubt we would see next week, I think we'll probably see it maybe at Fastlane, the next induction. But it also depends on how they want to spread it out. Because we do only have... I just realized today's March 1st.
Well, yeah, it's only a month, so I think it's going to be the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, because they could technically have somebody get announced April Fool's Day. Because that would be the last of the go home show. But I'm thinking they usually have the class set by then, so it is more than likely that they probably will have somebody announced this week, also. And if I had to guess, my guess would be Bam Bam Bigelow as the posthumous induction and the next member of the class. Because of the fact that they're in Jersey, he was rumored last year. It was rumored that they want to hold him off so he can get inducted in his hometown. You know, the interesting thing would be seeing Bam Bam Bigelow's probably family accept on his behalf and have somebody say, "Oh, Bam Bam Bigelow's son could be a wrestler," like they did with Rick Rude's son a few years ago. Well, if you had to pick anybody, who do you think? I mean, I know you're not completely aware of everybody that isn't in, but if you had to pick anybody, who do you think could be inducted next?
I'm still waiting on Elizabeth.
That's fair in my opinion. I mean, they forgave, Lex Luger, and I mean. For that, they forgave Lex Luger because Luger had been blamed for Elizabeth's death for the longest time, but last I saw, Luger was working with the company in some regard for the wellness policy stuff. So they've forgiven him. I wouldn't be surprised if Luger gets inducted at some point. Because he is still alive, not to, make a joke about it, but, it's few and far between, it seems like, with a lot of people in that era. But if I do agree that Elizabeth could get inducted, but I would also, just the name that popped into my head, maybe for next year, because they're going to be in Florida, Barry Windham.
See, he's not in. I'm telling you, these people I thought were in at this point. He was inducted.
Oh,
as part of the Four Horsemen.
Well, that means Barry Windham's not getting inducted solo, at least not yet, because they don't want him to be a 2-time inductee yet. Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of women. Like, obviously, I'm a woman, and I'm like.
You're a woman?
There's a lot of girls that I can think of that haven't been inducted yet because they really typically only do one at a time. I'm like, I can't think of, The Rock, The Undertaker, they're all going to go on at some point, but not yet. So I'm trying to think of who. Like, we already have our tag team, the group. Is JBL in yet?
No.
Maybe they'll do him. He's pretty much gone. I mean, I don't think he's coming back.
No, I mean, he still works for the company in some regard as probably a Legends contract or something like that. But yeah, I mean, maybe they might use him as a headliner, but I don't know if JBL has the capability to headline a Hall of Fame and actually draw people in.
No, I wouldn't say he would headline, but he'd be a big name.
But, well, that brings up an interesting question, because apparently they announced him as his nameplate at Royal Rumble said he was a Hall of Famer.
Let's see. Maybe he's gonna go in this year.
Maybe you knew something that everybody else didn't. Yeah. Well, one thing that I saw, of course people were complaining when DX was announced because they were like, oh, where's Rick Rude? Where's Rick Rude? Why isn't he not getting inducted? From what I remember, Rick Rude was only in the group for about a month before he left.
Well, first of all, Rick Rude is already in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So, people need to relax, like he's never going to get in, because he's already in by himself.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, and he was in I don't think it was a month, but he wasn't there terribly long, but he didn't add much to it. Like, I think when people think of Rick Rude, they don't think of DX.
Yeah.
Like, when you think of X-Pac, I mean, maybe the older people think of the 1-2-3 Kid, but I think of DX for the most part. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I don't think people think of Rick Rude. They don't think of DX, and I don't think it's necessary for him to be inducted with.
Mm-hmm.
When you think of DX, you think of the Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, China, Triple H. Like, that was DX.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not necessary for Rick Rude to go in. Because then, okay, well, what do you want? Tori, all the other people that were associated with DX.
Well, Tori was associated with the group longer than Rick Rude was.
He was, so, but that's what I'm saying. What do you want Stephanie in? Like,
yeah. Well,
where do we draw the line, people?
Well, I mean, this does bring up a question. If Triple H is going in now, is that his way of going in before he takes over the company, so it's not a big deal that he's not a Hall of Famer?
I think he'll go in. He'll go in by himself.
Yeah, but then the question, it's the same question with Vince. Like, when Vince steps down, is that when he goes in, or is it, because does Triple H have to go in before he takes over? Because everybody knows he's taking over eventually, unless Shane and Stephanie are taking over, and Triple H is just going to handle the creative side.
I never really thought of it that way. I mean,
because technically, if Vince is stepping down from the company once the XFL gets in full swing and he's going to focus on that, technically he could get inducted then.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I still think Mr. Fuji should get inducted again with Demolition.
Well, okay, now see, then it becomes how many, who else gets to be inducted with a group? Like,
well, in defense of Fuji, he was their manager for basically their entire run as a tag team, outside of their short run as babyfaces. But if, you associate Fuji with anybody, it's either you associate him with Demolition or Don Morocco, but you can't really induct him with Don Morocco. You can induct him with Demolition because he actually managed Demolition for an extended period of time. I don't know that he actually managed Morocco for as long as he managed Demolition. But also, I don't even know if Fuji's in by himself. I think he is, but I don't know. Because I think he was one of their early I think he was a part of one of the early classes, like when they did it back in the mid-90s. When they inducted Vince's driver into the Hall of Fame.
He was inducted in 2007.
Oh, shows how much I know.
I'm using the good old internet. By Don Morocco.
Hey, well, apparently Fuji Vice was the calling card of the era for Mr. Fuji and Don Morocco after Don had his run as a heel. Like the late 80s into the 90s, before Morocco left the company. And before Fuji went back to managing. Demolition. But, I mean, I think Bill Eadie should go in. I think that Barry Darsow should go in. Bryan Adams. Whether as Demolition or not as Demolition, as, separately, because, Bryan Adams Crush, from, 1993 to 1999, or 1998, Crush was a part of the company. I think he had a career, if any, in the defense of Crush, Barry Darsow deserves it more, or Bill Eadie, because they're more legends than Crush. Crush would be like that mid-carder you say, okay, but the only problem with Crush is also, he's dead. So, that's the issue. That's why, you induct Demolition, but the only problem with that is Demolition has the issue of being a part of the concussion lawsuit against the company, and that's why Demolition never got inducted. Because, if you're suing the company, that's a good way to keep yourself out of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good reason not to be in the Hall of Fame, too. But to talk about something different, were you surprised that Mr. Rollins won the Royal Rumble? I know. Oh, the Royal Rumble was almost 2 months ago, and you're talking about it now? Yes. We're busy people, and we haven't spoken since before the Royal Rumble, so get over it. We're talking about it now. But
I had rumors that he was gonna win. So not really, because WWE doesn't do anything with any of the people they have other than the same 4 people.
Are you disappointed that Seth Rollins won?
I wouldn't say disappointed. I just wish that they would give other people opportunities. I'm not going to say Finn Balor, but I'm going to
Thank you.
Slide. They could have had Johnny Gargano be a surprise, he was in the Rumble. He could have won. It just would have been nice if it was somebody that nobody was expecting.
Like Jeff Jarrett?
I wouldn't go that far, but do we really want to see Seth Rollins versus Brock Lesnar?
If Seth Rollins wins.
Nobody wants to see Brock Lesnar fight, period, but
nobody wants to see him win either, but
I don't even know who would have won.
If
they're not building anybody up to be who realistically would have won that match other than Seth Rollins or possibly Dean Ambrose? But Ambrose is leaving.
Well, that's why I think that they're setting it up to where Seth, Dean, and Roman have their moment to close WrestleMania. Which would be surprising, in my opinion, because if you're going to do that, you're actually going to do that for somebody who's leaving and more than likely going to end up in AEW very soon after. Soon enough that he could be a part of their Double or Nothing show in May. Because you also assume that Arn Anderson is probably going to be going to be making the move over there, because there's rumors already that he's going to be making the move over to AEW. Speaking of that, what do you think of the releases? Aren't TJP and Ty Dillinger.
I mean, Arn Anderson was... first of all, I didn't even know Arn Anderson still worked for the company. But, yeah, that's... I don't understand that. TJP, like, did nothing. I also heard that was more of a, like, a behavioral, like...
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I heard the same thing.
I mean, in Ty Dillinger... I think we all saw the writing on the wall with that one, like...
He asked for his release.
Because he's super talented, but he was never going to get used, and he was better off asking for his release.
He'll be in AEW before we know it.
Yeah. TJP probably will too.
Yeah. And apparently Arn was released because he didn't like how certain talent was being booked, and he was getting tired of the road schedule. Which, after 18 years, you kind of understand that.
Yeah.
But there's also a rumor that he will end up in AEW, and I think there's even a possibility that he'll be at the Crockett Cup at the end of April, finally being at an NWA convention for the first time in God knows how many years. But it will also be interesting to see Arn sit down and maybe do a shoot interview or two, because he's one person that, outside of that little gap of time between when he officially started with WWE and WCW went under, he hasn't been able to talk about his career or talk about, do anything as far as that's concerned. So he'll be, that's a lot of untapped, that's an untapped person, and, seeing him pictured with guys like Magnum and Tully and JJ and, all those guys, again, would be something you haven't seen in almost 20 years. Well, outside of a WWE ring, because you've seen it in a WWE ring, obviously. But it's definitely going to be interesting seeing Arn off the WWE roster.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
No, I just said, yeah, it's going to be weird.
Well, speaking of that, the thing that came from that was people saying now the new regime taking over the creative, because Vince hated, apparently, the creative direction of the company, so he hired about 17,000 new agents, including Jeff Jarrett, Gregory Helms, Sean Daivari, I'm probably missing a few. Oh, Chris Parks.
I just read today Dana Warrior.
Dana Warrior is an agent?
A writer. I thought you said writer, sorry.
Oh, well, that's that added to that too. Writer, because he added writers too, including his former, well, as you said, Dana Warrior, and Bruce Pritchard. Bruce Pritchard rehired to the company after 11 years. Now, to go back to Jeff Jarrett, 18 years. Or not 18 years, 20 years since he was in the ring with WWE. October 1999. Since the last time he was in a WWE ring, something nobody ever thought they'd see again. What did you think when you saw Jeff Jarrett number 1 at the Rumble and number 2 on Raw?
Well, I think we were all surprised when he got announced to be inducted, but I think into the last year or the year before he was in the Hall of Fame. So we knew that he was on good terms with them. It wasn't terribly surprising. It was a little weird because I feel like a lot of people don't remember Jeff Jarrett that much.
Well, yeah.
He wouldn't be the superstar that I would have liked to have seen come back. Like, nothing against him.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gregory Helms probably would have got a bigger pop, especially, looking, I think it was last year when he was a surprise in the Rumble.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's been 20 years, and I mean, his outfit was what, 30 years old, because he was his old Jeff Jarrett outfit as opposed to his WCW-esque Jeff Jarrett outfit. But how about him and Road Dogg tapping into their old, with my baby tonight?
Yeah, I wasn't feeling that.
Yeah. Road Dogg's lost his step. What can you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was funny, but not something I would, I'm glad it ended. I think it could have kept. I think Jeff Jarrett can still go, and I think it should have gone a little longer and maybe been more spread out to where they would actually have something to hype up to Fastlane for Elias. But I can understand why it only went like 2 or 3 weeks after the Rumble. Because it was a very one-sided feud. I mean, I understand that, but that's the problem with the company, it seems. Like, either the nostalgia wins decisively, or the current person wins decisively. It's never like an equal feud spread out long enough, because, there's no reason why they couldn't have spread it out till at least Elimination Chamber. Oh yeah, I forgot about Elimination Chamber. I forgot they had I forgot they had Elimination Chamber.
Oh. So did I.
Yeah. It's weird that they actually, I mean, I don't understand why they never spread it out, but, I mean, they could have also, not had Fastlane or not had Elimination Chamber, but then we wouldn't, well, no, then we could have had the, gauntlet match for the women's tag titles, instead of the Elimination Chamber. Speaking of that, women's tag team titles. Good decision, bad decision.
I think it should have happened years ago. But, I don't know, it was just, I think we all knew that Sasha and Bayley were going to win. Like, it would have made more sense years ago when they had tag teams, like Beth Phoenix and Natalya, the Bellas, like, play cool. Now it's just like random. Again, it's the same thing with the men's division, is that it's just random people being thrown together, and it just doesn't do much for me.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, if there wasn't if there weren't women's tag team titles, then Raw wouldn't have a match to hype up for Fastlane, because that's their only match that they have to hype up for Fastlane that is actually announced. Because Nia Jax and Tamina are against Bayley and Sasha Banks for the tag team titles at Fastlane. Even though I think that could be a WrestleMania match too, in some case, or they'll maybe introduce a SmackDown tag team into the match to have a SmackDown tag team on in the match on WrestleMania. But I don't know how that'll fit in with the Women's Battle Royal that'll probably happen too. Because you're figuring they'll probably have a Women's Battle Royal too. Because everybody needs to get a WrestleMania payday, and they also have like a 4-hour pre-show, so they gotta have matches on the pre-show. But, well, I mean, from what you've heard, because I know you probably watch the shows as much as I do, what do you think that, because this past week was the first week under the new regime. Bruce Pritchard was back on the creative team this week. From what you've heard or what you've seen, or do you think that this week both SmackDown and Raw, even though I know you've in the past, spoken more highly of SmackDown, do you think this episode of Raw was a positive and something they could build off of, or do you think they still have a long way to go?
I think they still have a long way to go. I don't know. I feel like it's the same. It's still the same stuff every week.
Oh, well, other than the closing segment. With Dave and the birthday and...
Oh, well, that I did not see coming. I will give you that. I had no idea that he was coming back like most of us did.
Yeah, you and me both.
That was something different.
Yeah.
But we all knew that at some point, Batista, it was going to... Yeah.
True. We knew he was going to come back eventually, but we just didn't know when.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't even remember Raw that much.
Other than that segment, I don't remember much of it either. Other than the fact that the Revival lost again. I don't know what exactly the company is planning or why the Revival chose to stay, but I guess maybe the company chose to say, just stick with us. We got a long-term plan for you. We got a WrestleMania plan for you. Because I know the rumor was DIY versus the Revival at Fastlane for the Raw Tag Team titles. But if that was the case, why did the Revival lose to Aleister Black and Ricochet on Raw? I don't get it. Especially if the Revival are up to lose again on Raw this week. If they are versing them at Fastlane, whenever Fastlane is, I don't know, and I don't really care. Because either way, I'm not going to watch it. But the more interesting part is SmackDown. Would you agree? SmackDown better than Raw? I don't know.
I think, yeah, SmackDown's been better than Raw for a while.
Yeah. Well, and I will also point out the Ronda Rousey Becky Lynch stuff on Raw was also something to stick out too, and
yes,
because it seems like the company is taking their time with that and actually doing a good job promoting it, as opposed to what everybody would expect, and they're trying to keep Becky hot, which keeping her off the show or keeping her on the show, but not in a but out of the ring is probably the best way to promote the match. And now the interesting part is not only do you have the Triple H response to Batista, but you have Ronda Rousey now forfeiting the women's title. What happens next? Now you have 2 reasons to watch Raw on Monday. The only problem is it's a 3-hour show, and most people don't want to sit through a 3-hour show to hear those 2 responses. Even if you just sit through and then you say, "Oh, well, I got what I wanted. Okay, I'm turning up the show." But Kofi Kingston, what do you think?
I have been a fan of Kofi since, I swear I am, even though I couldn't say his name. I've been a fan of Kofi since he started, pretty much. Mm-hmm. So I am all for him getting the limelight. I feel like this is leading to a New Day breakup.
Yeah.
And I'm not here for that. But if it gets Kofi Kingston, they have a shot with the WWE title, then I guess I'm okay. But I mean, can't we have it both ways?
Now, do you think that they replaced Kofi at Fastlane with Kevin to set up a match with Kofi at WrestleMania because of how positive the reaction was for him in Elimination Chamber?
they realized, like, what it was going to become.
Yeah. But
they're not stupid, and they're going to capitalize on it.
But I do agree.
It's pretty much this.
Yeah.
Sorry?
No, go ahead.
No, I mean, it's kind of pretty much the same thing that they're doing with Ronda and Becky.
Yeah, but the only difference is I don't know that Kevin Owens will be in the match at WrestleMania.
I don't think it'll be a triple threat. No.
But I do, cheap plug, I did, with my SmackDown rebound, the old, like they used to do with the old, hype, replays for SmackDown back in the day. I talked about it and the thought came into my mind when I was writing the article last night, which should be up on the site by now, that this could lead to a New Day breakup, as you said, with Big E turning heel. And costing Kofi the match at Mania, really, really starting a hot feud, in my opinion, between Kofi and Big E, but it would also be a hotter feud, in my opinion, if one of them got drafted to the other show. Because then you would have to wait until SummerSlam to have them fight each other.
Yeah, I think it could go any way, which way.
But then you would also have the ability to get Big E on Raw as a heel and establish him as a heel without the New Day being, it'd be easier to keep them apart if they were on separate brands. That's all I'm saying. And then just pencil in Kofi and Big E for SummerSlam. Because it's apparent that the company can't do it the other way, having them both on the same brand, because they get too trigger happy with doing a match before they should do a match. And with the fact that they have 87 shows between WrestleMania and SummerSlam, they would probably have Kofi and Big E fight 15 times in that time, to by the time you get to SummerSlam, you're ready for them to just never see each other again. Because they probably have, a super show in Saudi Arabia, one in Australia, one in Japan, one in Mexico, 5 pay-per-views, 3 takeovers, because, the company likes to overdo it. The one thing that now I can't talk. The one bit of news that caught my attention was that apparently Vince McMahon loves Pete Dunne and wants him to move either back to NXT America or the main roster after WrestleMania. Odds are it would be the main roster, because you're not going to move him back to main NXT unless you have a plan to make him be world champion, and that's how you're going to cover for Ciampa, Gargano, Aleister Black, and Ricochet coming up to the main roster, having Pete Dunne shift over and replace those guys that came up. But then the only question would be, when does Pete come to the main roster? Because you also have the Ciampa's still NXT champion and needs to stay in NXT.
I feel like with WrestleMania coming up, there's probably going to be some more signings, especially with AEW.
Yeah.
So there might, be somebody. Sorry, that to be the next star.
Mm-hmm. Well, Kushida is supposedly, I think he was announced as the newest training class, that he should probably be starting soon at the training center. And Trevor Lee should be starting soon too, down in NXT. Rachel Ellering, I think she recently appeared on an NXT episode. So a lot of the new signings should be appearing or already have appeared on the show. But then it also brings up Shayna Baszler and when she's coming up, and if her other, her friends would come up with her. I don't think they should because, they aren't ready for the main roster, and then that would bring up the never-ending, oh, when is the Four Horsemen going to verse the Four Horsewomen? Oh, blah, 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 blah. Well, that can't happen because Charlotte and Becky don't like each other. You're not going to really erase, unless you do the, I hate you, you hate me, but we both hate Ronda, so, let's do it. That type of thing.
That might be where they go.
I mean, that's the only way I could see it. That's the only way that it would make sense, that they put their differences aside to fight Ronda and, Shayna Baszler and the other two, who I've heard their names, I know their names, but I don't think of them as significant enough yet to remember their names. So,
Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, I'll probably forget them by tomorrow or later today. Yeah. Oh wow, time sure flies when you're talking about random shit. Well, now the WrestleMania question comes into the fold of, do you think that Brock and Seth main event, or do you think the triple threat match main events for the women's title?
Well, I think the women's title.
Now, do you think that the only reason why they do that is because Brock is leaving, or do you think they're actually that was the plan all along, to give the woman the main event?
I feel like that's been the plan all along. I feel like that's what they've been building on for the past year.
I agree with that. And I think, to a point I made earlier, I think that would make sense to give the Shield their one last moment in the ring after Seth wins the title. Because, I mean, the only way I would be okay with seeing Roman in a WrestleMania match is if he's in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. And here's why. It's because when Hulk Hogan won the Royal Rumble in 1990, that gave the match credibility. I know, Roman Reigns isn't Hulk Hogan. Yeah, he's not, but he's been compared to John Cena. And somebody can't say that if Roman wins the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, that would not give that match some credibility.
No, it would.
And I think that would be the best use of Roman, just to put him in the Battle Royal, keep him away from any, you don't have to rush to start a feud or put him in a program or whatever. Because if you're going to put him in a multi-man match at Fastlane, which I think is the best use of Roman Reigns, because, you don't know what you're doing with Drew McIntyre, Braun Strowman, Elias, all those guys, just stick him in a multi-man match, do it that way, and then continue on the multi-man idea of Roman being in the Battle Royal with Dean and Lashley and Elias and all those guys. Just put them all in the Battle Royal and let Roman win the Battle Royal. Because it would give the Battle Royal a little bit more meaning, because a guy like Roman would win the Battle Royal. And you don't have to rush to do a program then. Unless you, capitalize on, Baron Corbin and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. Because, there's obviously something there of a future program with Baron Corbin and Roman Reigns. Which is kind of funny how Baron Corbin always loses, or often loses, but maintains his heat. that he is absolutely one of the more hated people in WWE, but never really wins. Which is, you may hate him, but it is a testament to Baron Corbin that he can maintain his heat and is that hated.
Yeah, you got a point.
Well, to that point, what is one match you'd like to see at WrestleMania that hasn't been announced yet, or you hope that somebody has a match at Mania, like an important match at Mania, or anything of that nature?
Asuka does not have a match yet at Mania, which is beyond me. But I'm hoping it's against somebody from NXT, like Candice, or even Shayna Baszler.
That would be very interesting, especially showing the belief the company would have in Shayna to let her compete 2 nights in a row, because she's probably going to be actually, no, I think, memory serves, I think, isn't NXT that Friday, not that Saturday? I think, from what I remember, I think they switched it.
Can't remember.
Yeah, I don't, either way, it would show the belief they have in Shayna letting her compete twice in one weekend. On the biggest NXT show and the biggest main roster show.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me.
I completely agree. And I think I would point out, like, my match was already, the Battle Royal, but I hope R-Truth and Finn Balor both have matches at WrestleMania, whether it be the pre-show, whether it be the main card, it doesn't matter, just as long as they're on the show, because the Intercontinental title has been booked very well in the last year, and deserves to be on the main card of WrestleMania. The United States title, not so much. It hasn't been booked very well in the last year and doesn't deserve to be on the main card of WrestleMania. But it deserves to be on the show of WrestleMania, because if it's not on WrestleMania, it doesn't deserve to be a title anymore. Because then the company obviously does not care. But it does seem like they care a little bit more about the title now that R-Truth is the champion than they did when Shinsuke or Rusev held the title.
Yeah, which is a little strange to me, but
I agree, but I did like what they did on SmackDown with Andrade, Ray, and R-Truth, and one thing that just popped into my head, Andrade versus Ray, WrestleMania bound, or is it going to end at Fastlane? Or would you rather it happen at Fastlane and then happen again in some form at WrestleMania? Maybe in a multi-man match at WrestleMania.
I don't know, that's a good question. WWE likes to have the same match just 20 times in a row, so probably going to be at both shows at this point.
Well, in their defense, it has been a few weeks since we've seen Andrade and Ray collide, I think, partially because of Ray being in the Elimination Chamber. I think he was in the Elimination Chamber.
It's pretty bad. No, I don't think he was.
Right, I think he lost. Yeah. Whatever. Either way, it's been a few weeks since they fought each other. But if you keep plugging in, R-Truth or, a different person, or, even if you have, Sin Cara, Sin Cara, he's still with the company. Somebody else join the feud to, add a different wrinkle to the feud. Or even if you have Ray or Andrade beat R-Truth to become champion, United States champion. and add a different layer to the feud to keep it going. I would like to see, I would like to see them at WrestleMania. They have very good chemistry. I love it when they work together. But as I mentioned earlier, I was going to do another cheap plug for the other magazine that is coming together. Hopefully it will be all set before WrestleMania weekend. I will point out that it doesn't matter if this issue doesn't, the one I put up yesterday, for sale goes up for sale. It's, the money's an added bonus. It's more the fact that we just enjoy doing it. And, yes, it's more than likely that if this one doesn't do well, then I will, concede that maybe the magazine business is dead, and that maybe magazine isn't the best use of my time. It doesn't change the fact that it's fun to do. It doesn't cost anything for me to do, which is the reason why I'm so for doing it. But issue number 2, a lot more focus on wrestling. I hope to work with a local company, Synergy Wrestling in Jersey, to do the main article for the magazine. I hope to work with James Beard on a piece about Larry Hennig and Dynamite Kid. Sam is more than likely, or hopefully, going to have an article featured in the magazine too. Another follower, Taylor Marie, is going to have an article featured in the magazine as well. We're going to have, hockey in the magazine like we did last time. And other than that, it's just going to be hockey and wrestling this time. I'm going to have a baseball article, but that's pretty much it, just to spread it out. But it depends on, who gets me the articles in time, because if you don't get me an article in time, you just go on the website. But either way, what were you going to say?
I said it's only fair.
Yeah. But, either way, cheap plug, there will be another magazine or newsletter, whatever you want to call it. It will be coming. I want to point out, yes, I do wish that I could drop the price of the magazine to make it $1, make it, whatever. But I can't, because there is a $5 processing fee from the website that they will not let me charge under $5 for the magazine. And I do think if it was cheaper, more people would buy it. But because of the price that it isn't something that, a lot of people have their attention to, because of, it being written by a bunch of unknown people with not a lot of, and it's more opinion pieces rather than news, because, I'm not a dirt sheet. I'm not going to be a dirt sheet in the magazine. It's not about news. It's about opinions and sharing interesting opinions with people. And if people want to buy it, that's fine. If people don't, I'm entertained by doing it, and that's what matters. And I'm sure you're entertained by doing it too. Otherwise, you wouldn't have written an article for the last one, and maybe write an article for this one too.
Oh, exactly. Like we said in the beginning, it's not about money or views. I love wrestling, and it gives me something to do in life, because, I just work every day right now, so a lot of life.
I know. I'm working too, and I will give a plug to my buddies at a DWI podcast. I don't know what they're called now. They've changed their name so many times. Yes, they were one of those Twitter accounts that very sparingly keep the same name, but I'm supposed to be on their podcast next week, or we're going to try and work to get me on the podcast next week, where I'm going to talk about the magazine and the book, next week. But with all those cheap plugs out of the way, we did learn a lot today. We learned a lot, like we learned that you're a woman. I'm only kidding. I knew you were a woman. I just wanted to, squeeze that joke in. Because at least you laughed, and, that she laughed. It's okay.
It's all good.
Yeah. Well, now that we're actually... Well, no, we're not struggling for stuff to say. I'm just biding time to meet a more rounded time as opposed to the time that we're at. And with that being said, we met the rounded time of 1 hour and 9 minutes. So, with that being said, I forget my outro. With that being said, feel free to leave a like, subscribe for more content just like this that you can only find right here at Wrestling Express. And before you go, don't forget to ding that notification bell to always know when a new video comes up on the channel, whenever that might be. But as always, thank you, Sam, for joining me for another monthly discussion.
Thank you.